Menaka, let's just start with that headline number. Inflation appearing to be under control. What are the implications here for the RBI and fiscal plans as well?
Good morning, Paul. Well, the implications are that the RBI is expected to remain on hold for an extended period of time. That number, as you pointed out, came in at 2.75%, close to the consensus number of 2.77% as per the Bloomberg Analysts and Economists poll. And like I said, despite the fact that it is well within the targeted range of 4 to 6%, nobody expects the RBI to move on the back of this particular number for a couple of reasons. We're expecting to see some base effects kick in to move that inflation number a wee bit higher in the coming months. But more importantly, there are likely to be upward revisions to the GDP estimate now that we have some semblance of a trade deal with the US in place. That was one drag on GDP. So for those reasons, nobody expects the central bank to move anytime soon. Now, the other interesting thing about this number, Paul, is that it's a new CPI series where the base year has changed to 2024. Several new items have been added and weights of various items have been changed. We're also going to see a new GDP series and a new series for the index of industrial production. To talk to us about these fairly important changes to India's economic data, we have Saurabh Garg, the Secretary of the Statistics Ministry, joining us. Saurabh, hi, good morning. First, let's talk about this new inflation data. It would be great if you could briefly describe the big underlying changes in this new series.
Thank you. As you mentioned, the new series is with the base of 2024. And what we have done is we have updated it based on the consumer expenditure survey that we had done in the previous fiscal 23-24. So a number of changes have been done and it represents the consumption basket, which currently an average household in India would be purchasing. So some of the items have been removed. The number of items we have increased. And as well as the data sources have been increased. We've increased the coverage of markets by more than 500 markets. And we have reclassified the items to more closely follow the international standards, giving the breakup in 12 groups, which will increase the granularity of the data that will be available to policymakers.
Saurabh, the biggest change in this data, at least from the economist's point of view, is the reduced weightage to food, which is a volatile item and in the past has been seen as, showing inflation to be higher than generally speaking across the economy and leading to tighter than expected monetary policy. You have reduced the weightage of food, but within food, there are some interesting changes. For instance, more volatile items like vegetables and pulses have seen a reduced weightage, but more stable items like cereals have also seen a reduced weightage. So my key question is, do you expect net this to mean lower food volatility in this new series?
The weightage of food, as you correctly mentioned, has reduced. But I must also mention the weightage for prepared food for restaurant services has been a bit higher than what it was in the earlier series, and which reflects the changing consumption patterns and behavior. To the extent that in case volatility continues in the food items, the lesser weightage in the cereals may impact. But as you know, the volatility depends a lot on what items change from month to month. So to give a blanket statement might be difficult.
All right. Some of the other, components of this inflation calculation that have changed are also that you've lowered the weightage for transport and education. And that comes to me as quite interesting because all the consumption data of the recent past suggests that Indians are spending a lot more on commuting and on putting their kids to very expensive schools, whereas you've increased the weightage for housing, which is great, representative of the higher rents that we all pay, as well as an increased weightage for consumer discretionary items like personal products.
Yeah, so I would just say that transport and conveyance overall, in fact, increases because, as you mentioned, mobility is higher. So, transport and conveyance, if you take it together, it is higher. Housing, no doubt, has increased, but that's also partly because now, under the housing group, we also have kept the utilities like water, electricity, which is what is the international classification. And in the personal discretionary items, personal care items, there have been significant changes. For example, in gold jewelry has in fact reduced, but we've added platinum and diamond along with that, so that the change is very minimal. But that's what is the consumer behavior. And we've strictly looked at the consumption basket, which we had two back-to-back surveys in 22-23 and 23-24. And I must say the consumption basket in a way reflects the improving socioeconomic conditions of people. If you look at the last decade, at the lowest decile, the consumption expenditure per month per household has more than doubled. And I think with that, there's an increased weightage to services, including transport, housing, health, education, and a reduced proportion of expenditure on food, which is to be expected as general incomes rise.
Secretary, just to continue with the theme of reweighting, and it is so fascinating because we don't get to see this very often, but the new basket has other services in it as well, like streaming services, gym equipment as well. But considering in India rural consumption is still such important to the backbone of the economy, is the balance right between the urban middle class, which is rising, and the rural average Indian's wallet as well? How do you get that balance right?
So one of the basic methods that we do it is looking at the consumption expenditure survey. And we follow a scientific stratified sampling procedure, which looks at the consumption expenditure patterns at different deciles. And for each decile, there's a stratified sample that we use. And also, we have looked at the markets. We have increased the number of markets that we were sampling to now nearly 3,000, 2,900 odd to be exact. And they have a mix of both urban and rural markets. And they have markets located in different areas, in the more affluent areas, in other areas. So when we look at the 358 items that we have and the 3,000 markets, so on a monthly basis, there's actually nearly 1 million data points that we get, and that's what forms the basis for the final one figure of estimate of, let's say, 2.75 that you get in January. So it's pretty representative, and given the vast expanse of the country, both in terms of geographic area and population, and the fact that rural, urban, and different income levels, it's the large number of data points that we collect ensures the representativeness of the data.
So this is the first set of numbers to be reported under this new series, and it'll be interesting to watch this as we get more over the next few months. And as that happens, do you anticipate seeing many revisions?
In the CPI in general, there is one revision that happens in the subsequent month, but our experience has been that's very, very limited. Because the response rates in terms of the markets that we have, the data collection we have in the first estimate itself is more than 90 to 95%. So there might be a few more data points that might come in, but our experience over the past 20 years show that those revisions are very, very minimal. In fact, we have the data for the new series for the past 12 months for the entire year of 2025 also. So we don't expect major changes to happen month to month to the figures that we report at the first instance.
The IMF has previously flagged gaps in India's outdated statistics. Do you feel that you can now silence some of those critics?
Absolutely. I think one of the major issues that had been raised by the IMF was the fact that we were using an outdated base of 2011-12, which was more than a decade old. The normal practice is around 5 years or so, and due to COVID and earlier due to issues with the earlier consumption expenditure survey, we couldn't update it. But with this updation, and I must say it's not just a base year updation that we've done this time. We've fundamentally changed the method of classification that we've used. We've increased the markets, we've increased the items. We've added e-commerce online markets, given the fact that over the past decade, due to high levels of digitalization in the country, we have access to more real-time data through both online sources as well as e-commerce. So all of those changes have been done, and I'm confident that we will continue to be among the best in terms of the methods that we use to collect the data.
Saurabh, inflation is not the only metric that is changing in terms of computation. We have two other big changes coming up, a new series for GDP, as well as for the index of industrial production. Can you very quickly talk us through what investors should expect from both these changes?
Yeah. So the GDP, we'll be bringing out the revised base in another fortnight or so. And same things that we are doing that we've done with the CPI. We are updating the base year to 22-23 for the GDP and IIP. We are presenting the structure of the economy in a much better manner. In the IIP, new industries that have come up will get added, old industries would get removed. The data sources that we are using are much wider. We have more digital data available with us. We have new sources of data. The GST, the goods and services tax data is available. We have the public financial management service data available, which tracks government expenditure. We have a number of other digital sources of data, all of which will get incorporated into the GDP and subsequently into the IIP also. So I think we are ensuring that we become much more representative, and we are using the latest technologies and methods for the same.
One final question from me, Saurabh, and that is, sorry, all data comes with bias, right? If the inflation data earlier was biased towards being higher, now economists worry whether the bias has moved towards the lower side. Equally for the GDP data, I mean, the base year updation is quite, an ordinary exercise across countries. But do you feel that these additions of new elements, new metrics, new markets should investors be prepared for certain big shifts?
See, what we are trying to ensure is that whether it's the CPI, which is more representative of consumer behavior, or the GDP, which is more representative of the structure of the economy. We are ensuring that representativeness improves. Our focus is also on to see that we have accurate data. We have data which really captures whether it's the prices or the health of the economy. As any statistical office, our attempt is to ensure that the confidence levels in those data are something which remain high. And for that reason, we are ensuring that every data point that we put out transparently on our portal. We have improved our data visualization capabilities, which are available on our portals and website. So it's very easy for anyone to replicate the results that we've got. So we do hope that there should be no biases which would creep in other than what the data itself or the technology itself may have.
Secretary, just finally, and thank you for your time today, but I am interested in your view on AI and whether or not that's affecting that you might look at employment data or the way that it might disrupt data going forward. Is that something that's on your mind?
We track employment and unemployment data very closely on a month-to-month basis. All I can say is perhaps it's too early to talk about what would be the ultimate impact of AI. AI will definitely help improve productivity. We are using it in our data collection methods to improve the accuracy of data, to be able to reduce the time taken by enumerators on the ground to collect data by ensuring that their doubts get answered through the AI chatbot that's built into the tablets. So I would say it's too early to hazard a guess what's going to happen because every technology has changes, but history, if it is any guide to technological changes, it just means that maybe the base level gets up. But I leave it out there.